Check this out, the new Nissan Z. And today, I'm not just going to review this, we're going to track this, we're going to test out the launch control, and we're going to take it on the road to show you how good this thing is. Because in my opinion, I think we've got something here that is pretty special. So, let's roll! Five years ago, the Nissan engineers took on a mission to design the next generation Z. And the goal was very simple, to make something that was stylish in and out, and most importantly, 400 horsepower. And they have managed to achieve that. And the beautiful thing is that a lot of things in this car are part of the Z history. From the first car all the way to the last gen, the 370Z, this thing, it's sort of like history in making. Every part of this car, from the front end, from the rear end, from the engine, everything represents something within that history of the Z. So today, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about this. But let's start first with the exterior. Let's talk about some of that history that this has with the previous models. The first thing you notice here is, of course, the headlights, and they represent a design inspired by a previous generation, a Nissan Z. In this case would be the Datsun, which actually was the headlight of the Datsun that inspired this kind of design. And then we have the silhouette, where you have a short deck at the back, and most importantly, you have a long hood in the front. So again, that kind of design using the 240Z, for example, has been brought to this model specifically. Hence why I said there is so much history in this car. It feels like all the pieces together from different cars make the new Z. And then next thing we'll talk about is, of course, the door handle. Now, this may look very similar to other previous generations, but what they have done this time is that it is more flat around here for better airflow in comparison to, for example, the 370Z, which is sort of pushed a little bit out. And then we'll move on to this side over here. The airflow continues in this area all the way through. This design over here makes the car better aerodynamically in comparison to the 370Z, which is more flat. The model that we have for today's video is the Standard Performance Z. This is not the Proto, but with this package you can also get the same color that you get on the Proto. The difference is that this doesn't actually have the same color painted wheels, the interior, the stitching, and a lot of things that are missing. But in terms of the Proto specs, I'd say the difference is not massive with this standard model, so you're not losing that much. The performance is pretty much the same. Now we move on to the rear end, and here's where things get interesting as well. We have the same inspired design for the tail lights that you'll find, for example, in the 300ZX. Very similar shape. So again, that history follows this car pretty much everywhere. And then move on to the exhaust and the diffuser, that beautiful black exhaust all the way across. This thing sounds quite impressive. Now, it is of course a similar engine that you use in the Q60 RS, that's a VR30 engine. And this also, in my opinion, sounds as good as that, almost the same actually in some ways. So let me show you how it sounds. Let me start it up for you so you can hear it. Well, let's do a quick walk around. First of all, the wheels, amazing style. Absolutely love this type of wheels. It is sharp. Now here's a few things you need to know in terms of the brakes. The performance package gets the 2 piston in the front, in the back, and then we have 4 pistons in the front, as you can see with the performance package. But the sport package, the lower, basically uses 2 piston in the front and then 1 piston at the back. These are quite impressive brakes. For this model that we have for today's video, they actually use the Nismo pads just to make it more resistant to the track, because we were able to actually take it around the track. We had a lot of fun, great experience taking this around the corners, and it handles pretty well, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I want you to understand how beautiful this thing is. Maybe in a video it doesn't do justice, but in my opinion, in person, this thing, it's an absolute looker. And I love the fact that you have that long hood all the way, and then we have that short back, where the short deck at the back. Now, one thing you'll notice with this is that the rear end is very different from the 370Z. The 370Z is more round. This is more flat in comparison to that. But what they have done, in my opinion, is that they have still somehow managed to get this very close to that interior design that you find in 370Z. Not necessarily the material, not necessarily the tech, but the way it looks from the inside, that sporty design using the 370Z. On the exterior, this thing is quite sharp, and if I had to, and I've placed an order for myself actually, I would get definitely this color, and I asked for the Proto, but if the Proto is not available, I would be absolutely okay with having just the way this thing looks, because in my opinion, it's just quite sharp. Now, let's talk about some of the front end designs over here. One thing you notice under the light is this bonnet, the style, the bulge over here, and then we have the line all the way through, which they have done a great job to make it as aggressive as possible around this area. You have that bonnet, if you look carefully, you can see it, but it's mostly visible when it's very bright outside. The front end, just look at that. This thing, it's in my opinion, just looks extremely sharp. And it's one of those cars that you get to enjoy in every corner. Now, let's talk about some of the space at the back in terms of the cargo area. First of all, in order to open the trunk, what you do is press this button underneath here, and then you open it up, and look at that. So now I have my cases in there, matching color case, of course. And then we have the second bag over here. There's not much space. It is, of course, a 2-door, 2-seater. So in some ways, it looks very much the same as the 370Z. So the difference in terms of the cargo space hasn't changed much. The design is still there, very similar with that bar that you see in behind the second row, behind the seats at the front. This thing is, it's still as comfortable, as spacious. If you like the 370Z, you would enjoy this one specifically. Let's talk about the exterior design specifically. Every angle you look at it, this car looks beautiful, whether it's on the front side or left and right, or even at the back. In person, this thing is an absolute looker. And in my opinion, if you had to get one, this would be a great color to have. It is bright. It really enhances that black roof, brings out some of the details, makes it look quite sharp. Like if you look close here to the actual hood, the bulge at the top, it comes out really nicely. And then the bumper at the front here, there's not much aggressiveness to this car. It's not just too much out there that really hurts your eyes. It's simplistic yet sporty at the same time, which I absolutely love about it. Now let's take a look at the interior. And first of all, let's start with the door panel. Beautiful, very similar again, that door handle on the side here, what you'd find in other Nissan Z. And then we have the Z leather right at the bottom. The seats are nice and comfortable. We have leather and suede mixed together all the way through. Very sporty, bucket style, but not too stiff and not too tight when you get inside. In terms of the sitting position, for me, someone that is 6'2", it's actually quite spacious. I've been in the Supra, and what I find with the Supra is that I don't get as much headroom in comparison to this. And every time I'm coming out of the Supra, I'm hitting the head, and you're just an inch away from your head actually touching roof, which could be a bit more unsafe, I'd say. This, in my opinion, for someone my height, you feel nice and comfortable. I can definitely enjoy a long trip on this. The sitting position is quite nice. It is semi-automatic, so that means you can have it back and forth automatically moved, or the actual recliner. And then we have more changes here to have the seat lowered, and then we have on this side to make it lower at the back. So you have two settings for the front side and the back, where it splits between the recliner and the actual seat. The steering wheel, it can be adjusted. Of course, it is manually adjustable. You can move it back and forth, up and down, which really helps. The windshield is not too small, so you don't have poor visibility. In terms of overall visibility, it is a two-seater, so you don't expect the best, but this does the job just fine. I would say, of course, the rear windshield is not as big, and you just get a little bit of space in terms of visibility. But overall, the sitting position, as someone that is 6'2", I'm a tall person, taller than the average individual, this thing just does the job just fine, in my opinion. And that's one thing I love about it, is that it's not just a two-seater, it's also a comfortable two-seater that you can really enjoy. And you can find so much history in this car. And that's what I love about the Nissan brand, and this one specifically, is that they didn't just take away completely everything from the previous generation. They brought in, we have the gauges still at the top, which have been all the way to the Datsun era. And then the cluster, now this has a bigger screen, a 12.3 screen, massive cluster, adjustable. You can change a lot of settings. The one that we are driving today is actually the 6-speed manual transmission. I picked it specifically with this color because I really wanted to enjoy around these beautiful roads in Nevada. We're actually in Las Vegas, and really you can open it up. Although the 9-speed automatic transmission would be my choice in some ways, specifically for drag races, but to actually enjoy this and experience that 6-speed is quite impressive. We'll talk about that in detail. Now, let's go for a drive and let's talk about how this thing drives, and let's talk about the tech features as well. V6 twin turbo, 400 horsepower, under 3,600 pounds. This thing is quite impressive. And here's the beautiful thing. You get a 6-speed manual transmission or a 9-speed automatic transmission. This thing is an absolute joy to drive, and just the way it feels. The specs are amazing. We know this engine. This is the VR30 used in the Q60. Everyone wanted the manual transmission with that engine, and Nissan is giving you. That's the beautiful thing with this car, is that every single thing that you have asked actually is successfully out there. This is it. I know a lot of owners that wanted the Q60 manual transmission, and of course the Q60 being close to 4,000 pounds is actually a shame because it's a heavy car. And with this, it fixes all of those problems. Last night I was sitting with Mr. GTR. Everybody knows, he doesn't need any introduction. If you're a Nissan fan, you know who he is. And we were talking about this, and he said, Sam, we were listening to what the owners of the Q60 wanted it. We were listening to them carefully. We were listening the things that they wanted in this car, and hence why we brought this. It just made sense to get that engine and put it in the Z, because The platform is there. The engine in this, it's almost 99%. It's exactly the same as you'd find in the Q60. The difference is that this, the forced induction, the way the air is pushed through is much better because it gives you a crisper and better, faster reaction. So the engine is slightly better performing in comparison to the Q60. This car, it's pretty light. The manual transmission, I believe, was about 3,500 pounds. Meanwhile, the automatic's about 3,600 pounds, which is a great power to weight ratio. It makes 400 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque. Just open it up. Just opened it up. This car, it's so well balanced on the road in the corners, and it's yet comfortable. Now we have a monotube suspension setup in comparison to the outgoing model. We also have a more powerful car, of course. The difference in gears in terms of the 9-speed automatic transmission is completely different from what you see in, let's say, in other vehicle Nissan, like the Frontier uses exactly the same 9-speed transmission. I had the conversation with Mr. GTR about, okay, let me talk. I had a conversation with the Mr. GTR in terms of the transmission. The transmission may be similar to what you find in other Nissan vehicles, but the way it's tuned, the way this thing, the 9-speed specifically, reacts to the command, it's amazing. Even in manual mode, it has those inspired GTR paddle shifters. The actual steering wheel is thicker now in comparison to the outgoing model. This looks similar to what you'd find in the GTR. The brakes in this, we have the 4-piston in the front, 2-piston in the back. These are similar to what you find in the Q60. You've seen those, very similar to that. The model that we have today is the Performance. So in my opinion, they're just, they have absolutely killed this car in terms of the performance level, in terms of the weight to power weight ratio, all that. Let's turn on the trend. Even the actual traction button is in the same spot as the 370Z. I'm loving this. This is what it's all about. It's a 6-speed manual transmission going around the corners, having some serious fun, twisty roads. They've made this place, they've picked this place specifically for this. Rear-wheel drive, it grips well. Here's a clip from when we did the launch control test with the 9-speed and the 6-speed manual transmission. So watch that. Okay, this is the first drive. We're gonna do a test of launch control. This has no launch control at this point, so we're just doing a normal test without launch control. So I have it into drive, I have it into sport mode. This is the automatic. It's a 9-speed. Love the pedal shifters. I'm nice and comfortable. Of course, I have this gigantic thing, so I am good to go. Did do well, did do well. Oh God, this is good. This is good, this is good. Oh. Oh, this is good. The tires are just warmed up a little bit, and there we go. Oh, this is good. This thing launches really, really good. I'm liking it. I'm digging this thing.
Right, okay.
I think I launched the first one at too high the RPM, and
it created wheel spin,
yeah.
And then it was like traction control.
Traction control, yeah.
So this one.
How do we activate the launch control?
So the launch control is gonna be virtually exactly what you did with.
Just a bit closer so I can my viewers can watch
yeah.
you. Sorry.
Okay.
And your name is?
It's Todd.
Todd. So
yes.
Todd is gonna teach us how to do the launch control. So.
Fantastic. So you're gonna go left foot brake.
All the way.
Yes.
I have it in sport mode, drive mode, okay.
It'll be right foot throttle as you're lined up currently. And in order to select launch control, you're gonna pull both pedals back hold them. Don't do it yet.
Okay, I understand.
Ready. Pull them back, hold them, full throttle. It'll say launch control right there, and off you go.
Interesting. Okay, so brake all the way.
Yes.
Gas all the way.
I would select paddles before
First?
gas all the way. Yes.
Okay, so that's the next step, and then gas, and then just release the brakes and the pedal.
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct. Yeah, you don't have to hold the paddles once you're going.
So the pedals and the brakes, you let them go at the same time.
Sure.
That's the way it is. Okay. Okay, so brake down, I understand. Sport mode. Does this only work in sport mode?
Yes.
Okay.
And only works in drive mode. So if you're
Of
in
course.
manual or standard, it's not going to do
It's
it.
not going to do it?
That's correct.
That's a very good point. Okay. Let me try this. Just the window for the...
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I have it in drive mode. Brake all the way down. Hold the brakes here. Come on. It's not showing.
Another thing to note is it gives you 5 seconds to select that, and then it times out.
It didn't show me anything.
Right, so I think we held on to the paddles too long before the throttle.
Oh.
So you want to do that pretty, you know.
You got to do it
when
pretty
you're
quickly.
Ready,
Okay.
when you're ready, just go paddles, throttle, and launch. Does
Got
that
you.
make sense?
So it needs to be quick.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I hear you. That was good. It brakes so nicely. Oh, it really puts you in your seat. It's such a happy tail car. I don't think it showed up as it should.
Did you want to try it one more time?
Can we?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I know you can do it.
I know I can do it for sure, but okay, let me try it one time. Say so brake down, paddles at the same time. So this has got to be pretty quick. Okay, let's try this. Launch control activated. There we go. There we go. Now we're talking. What a difference. It gives you about 5 miles extra with the launch control. Oh, yeah, that was quick. That was quick. This thing is so much fun. I'm glad I placed an order one for myself. It just screams. Woo! Okay, so I'm assuming a lot of spinning with the traction. What RPM should I launch
This
it
is
at?
a lot of spinning.
So what are
Between 3 and 4 is pretty nice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
23 and 4. Okay.
Well, between 3 and 4.
3 and 4.
Yes.
I got you. Okay. Brilliant. So we're testing out the 6-speed manual transmission. I have the traction off. It is it actually doesn't have the sport mode, so I'm assuming it is in sport mode. Shift light. I love the shift light. I love the shift light. Okay, so let's try this one more time. Oh, it's like the whole thing here together just makes it so easy for me just to go. $7,000 RPM. I love this thing. The brakes are nice, and this only has the 2 piston in the front, 1 piston in the back, so this doesn't have the full performance brakes that you find. This is awesome. This is really awesome. And a manual handbrake. Absolutely love that. Woo! Now here are some of the key differences in the interior. Although on both sides, you still got that massive 12.3-inch cluster. The navigator here, the navigation system, it's different for the US and Canada. The infotainment display in this one is a 9-inch, meanwhile in Canada we get an 8-inch, which is a smaller one. Not a big deal, but that's something to keep in mind. In terms of the rest of anything else that it's offered in the US, it's technically offered in Canada, so the trims are very similar. We're always going to have the Proto, which is only for 1 year. That's only going to be available for 1 year. But to be honest, like from looking them side by side, you can technically paint the wheels anyways. It's not the end of the world. So I think they're just giving something special to the buyer, something that people will enjoy for the rest of their life if they keep it in that case. Something different, but it's not extremely different so that everybody else doesn't feel like, oh, we didn't get the best option, which I respect that. I wish they would have given it a bit more sporty look on the outside, like maybe a better spoiler or something like that. But nonetheless, the way it is, it's still quite a good looking vehicle. Even the one that I have for today's video, you couldn't even tell which one is the Proto unless you really looked into the details, because the colors are pretty much the same. The wheels, of course, are a different color, but who can paint those? You can just find someone and paint them for you. This thing, it's such an impressive vehicle for the money. I'm quite impressed with what Nissan has done to this. Now here's some things that I actually don't like about this, because it's not all perfect. First of all, I don't have a heads-up display. That's not nice. I wish that I've opted for that. That would have made the car a bit more interesting, because you'd have those shift lights in the actual cluster. The problem I see as well is the seats. The seats are comfortable for day-to-day, which is great, but I wish there was an option where you can purchase sort of like performance seats, because there's people out there that want a bit more of a track experience. That would have been really great, in my opinion. The exhaust sound is not as loud. I wish there was a bit more rumbling, more deep. It's not quite there. This engine can sink, but you can fix that. The beautiful thing is that VR30 has been in the market for so long now that it's easy to find tuning options. It's easy to find the exhausts. You can get Borla, you can get anything just to make it louder. It's not a big deal. That is the advantage you have with this engine. It's already a platform that's been in the business for so long now that easy to find things to fix anything that you don't like. Like I said, for the exhaust is one example. In fact, my G35 had that. The interior feels very similar to Nissan's throughout the history. In fact, we had different models. Nissan was kind enough to show us different models throughout the history. They had the 370Z, the 350Z, the 300ZX, the 240Z Datsun. Everything was there for us. We had the twin turbo one as well. Let's jump inside here. Let's talk about some of the details. First of all, we have the cluster. It has actually a shift light at the top, and then we have this GTR-inspired steering wheel that is grippy, that is thicker than the outgoing model 370Z. We have the beautiful Z logo in the center. You can change the settings over here. As you can see, you can change the meter view. Now we have it in sport mode, which is actually the signature one, but you can also have it in normal mode, which shows you other details, as you can see here. And then we can go all the way to the enhanced one, which actually shows you the map as you're driving, also the RPM and the speeds. And what I love about it, you have the speed in miles per hour, we're in the US now, and kilometers per hour at the bottom. Then we move on to this area, we have the 3 gauges, very signature, Nissan signature design. We have the boost, we have the turbo speed, and most importantly, we have the battery voltage. Then we move on to this side, we have the infotainment display, but what's important is that Canadians, we only get an 8-inch, a smaller version of this, unfortunately, but in the US, they do offer a bigger screen. It does have a backup camera, it doesn't have a full 360 camera, and like, for example, like other Nissan models, look at that, it's pretty clear, it will do the job just fine. And then the actual gear knob over here, it's easy to use, easy to go into first, second, third, and so on. Then move on to this area, we have the start stop button over here, we have the sport mode for the transmission on the side, we have the actual climbing unit, then of course more buttons here to control the infotainment display. The infotainment display is pretty much the same way as you'd find in other Nissan. Very similar. We have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay as well. Most importantly, it is touchscreen, easy to use. But the sad part about this is I believe in Canada we do not get the navigation system the same as the US buyers. Then we have this beautiful vented area over here for the AC. And then we move on to the side, the door panel, again, very similar to previous generation Z, not too far off. The entire experience inside here, it's quite nice. I love this area, very sporty, yes, usable, yet usable and very functional, and that's one thing I love about this car. We move on to the center console. We have one cup holder here, one over this side, and then of course we have heated seats both sides. Now they look very familiar to other models. Then this is the trunk release button, and then we get onto the side. Again, this is very familiar. We have the two switches for the windows. We have the lock and unlock button, and most importantly, to lock the windows if you want to, in case you have a child on your second seat, because it only has two seats. And then we have the adjustability for the mirrors for left and right, and most importantly we have a standard mirror. There's no actual camera in here. It would have been nice if we had that option where the camera comes down into this screen. This doesn't have, and we also don't have a sunroof with this package, and I believe it doesn't actually offer a sunroof at all. Nonetheless, the interior is where things are quite impressive in this car, which I absolutely love. This design, it doesn't go away from that Nissan culture. It will make you feel welcome if you come from a 370Z to this. Last but not least is of course the pricing. In Canada, it starts at $46,000 for the base 6-speed manual transmission. It goes all the way up to $65,000 Canadian for the Proto spec 9-speed automatic transmission. But what's important is that the Proto is only limited availability, and it's only going to be sold only for 1 year. So you're probably never going to get the chance to get one, as I will not myself. I've tried to get the Proto, but what I'm looking at for me would be the Performance 9-speed automatic transmission at $59,000, almost $60,000 Canadian. That is a great pricing strategy in comparison to, let's say, the Supra or even a Mustang, which you could look in above that price, depends on the trims. But a fully loaded one at 9-speed automatic transmission, look at about 60 grand, very well priced. In the US, you're looking for the base model at $40,000, exactly $39,990. But that's for the 6-speed manual transmission or the 9-speed automatic transmission. Then when we jump into the performance, which is the next trim, will be about $50,000 USD. And then we jump all the way to the Proto spec, whether it's the 6-speed manual transmission or the 9-speed, we're looking at $52,990, about $53,000 USD. It would appear that in the US, they're not discriminating between the 6-speed manual transmission or the 9-speed automatic transmission. In Canada, we're paying a bit more for either or. So that's where things change a bit. And most importantly, in Canada, we do not get the 9-inch touchscreen display. Ours is only an 8-inch in comparison. To wrap up this video, my last thoughts. I think Nissan over here has brought something that is very competitive. We have a 6-speed manual transmission. We have a 9-speed automatic transmission which shifts better. The 6-speed out there is going to be very competitive. In fact, that the Supra doesn't yet offer a 6-speed, and when they will next year or this year, well, let's just say you're going to have a hard time to purchase one because it's going to be limited production. This is the next option in my opinion. The pricing is there. The options for tuning this vehicle is out there. You're going to have many tuners and of course a lot of parts to purchase if you really want to play around or even keep it stock. But in my opinion, there's something special about this car that you're really going to enjoy once you pick one up.